How's it going, everybody? Adrian here from the Gaming Observer, and welcome back to your daily news update for Friday, September the 18th. We're going to close off your week here with a ton of news. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, so Nintendo had a Direct Mini today, and it actually turned out to have some pretty significant news. Most importantly, Monster Hunter is getting 2 new games added to their lineup. The first one is called Monster Hunter Rise, and that's going to be the next kind of mainline open world entry in the game. And this is going to follow in the footsteps of Monster Hunter World, a greater focus on narrative and minimal loading screens, but it's likely going to still be smaller in scope. It's going to have some new features, including a rideable dog companion called a Palamute, as well as a grappling hook that can be used at any time for traversal or combat. It looked like a lot of fun, and I mean, any game with a grappling hook is instantly better, in my opinion anyway. As always, they're going to have some new monsters to battle, and it's going to be releasing exclusively on the Nintendo Switch on March 26th. And they'll have a Standard Edition, a Deluxe, and a Collector's Edition. The second game is Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, and this is a continuation of the story-based spin-off series, Monster Hunter Stories, which originally launched on the 3DS. We didn't get a ton of details for this one, but the first game had a turn-based combat system instead of real-time, and it focused on monster riders and the relationship that you have with monsters instead of, hunting them. This one is going to release exclusively on the Switch as well at an unspecified summer date in 2021. And I mean, hey, Monster Hunter World is the best-selling game that Capcom has ever had. We ought to have expected something like this. Other than Monster Hunter, it was also announced that 3 new games are going to be available on the Switch. There's Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is an Xbox game, and it is an absolutely fantastic title. Everybody should play it. It's a 2.5D platformer, it's beautiful, it's got tremendous music. Please, please, please look at Ori and the Will of the Wisps. There's also The Long Dark, which is a great narrative-driven survival game. It's been around for a while. And Hades is also now available from Supergiant. I'll talk more about that soon. And they gave a bunch of information about some other indie games. Feel free to get the link if you're interested in those, but I told you about all the major stories. Hot off of their event yesterday, PlayStation is putting out a ton of fires right now. In particular, the situation around pre-orders is an absolute mess. At one point, they promised that pre-orders for the PlayStation 5 would be invite-only for a limited time via email. Apparently, those are still on the way, but then they also said that the floodgates were going to open sometime on September 17th, and then in reality, they actually opened it on the evening of the 16th, which was just a few hours after the event. So this just ended up with almost all of the retailers running out of stock, people scrambling to get their hands on whatever they can, refreshing the website every 2 seconds. Meanwhile, Sony is saying, hey, pre-orders are available tomorrow. It was such a confusing situation. Not only that, but the individual games is also really weird. You heard my insert at the end of yesterday's show. Games like Final Fantasy XVI, Demon's Souls, at different times have either been non-exclusive, console exclusive, or PlayStation exclusive. So keep a close eye on whatever game it is that you're most interested in, because that might change over, the original messaging. And I mean, clearly Sony needs to work on something here in terms of clarity. There really should not be these glaring issues when you have tens of thousands of people just watching your broadcast at one time, and millions of people just waiting for more. The Nintendo 3DS has officially been discontinued. Perhaps this was to be expected, but they are no longer going to be manufacturing any of them. The eShop and retailers are still going to sell games, and obviously you'll have full access to anything you've already bought. For the foreseeable future. I'm sad about this one. I think it's fair to say this is the end of an era for Nintendo, because the Switch is so popular playing these AAA games, I'd be surprised if they return to like a handheld-only device anytime soon. Anyway, just in case you're curious, the 3DS family has sold close to 76 million units, which is roughly half of their best-selling console of all time, which is the original DS family. Alright, and finally, Hades has officially launched out of early access. Now, if you haven't heard of it, this is a roguelike title from the highly acclaimed indie studio Supergiant. You might know them from Transistor or Bastion or Pyre. And I mean, Hades was extremely loved during its time in early access, and the official reviews that are now out have nothing but good things to say. So if you are into roguelikes or Greek mythology or any of Supergiant's previous games, you should definitely check this out. I personally can't wait to get into it. And then the other game that's also out soon is Super Mario 3D All-Stars. That's Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy all in one package. And, you know, the general consensus around this game with its release and its production has been pretty negative. However, the reviewers are recommending it if you have an interest in playing any of those 3 games. So don't be swayed by the internet on this one, I guess I would say. Anyway, folks, I'm running out of time, so that's going to be all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And that's also going to wrap up our week of news. So I'll be back this weekend with some special shows, hopefully, time permitting, and back with the news on Monday. So until then, happy gaming, everyone. How's it going, everyone? TGO After-Show. That was a long show. I don't usually go that long. But I mean, man, we have so much to talk about. I get really sad because sometimes I need to dedicate the entire show to one event, right? Yesterday it was the PlayStation show, at another point it was that Ubisoft show, which means that some of this news just ends up getting punted into future days. And, you know, I don't necessarily have anything like that today, but it just means that news that I would normally talk about is being pushed to the wayside because it's a large news day. But I mean, hey, that's a good thing. It's worse when I don't have something to talk about. Anyway, let's go through the stories here, because I think they're really interesting. Monster Hunter, I'm a little confused about it, I'm not going to lie to you, because the way they've kind of structured this series is interesting. They have something called Monster Hunter Generations, where my understanding from what I've seen is that it's not necessarily a spin-off, but not also necessarily a mainline entry. It's kind of just another version of Monster Hunter or something like that. I know those of you who play this game is like yelling at your device right now, but either way, my understanding about Monster Hunter Rise is that it is not the next direct follow-up to Monster Hunter World, which was so popular. I think they were working on a third Monster Hunter game that is meant to be as big as World was. Especially considering these 2 games are coming out on the Switch only, after World was on everything. I would have been really surprised if the next big thing was not also everywhere. But I mean, hey, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I really, really want to get into Monster Hunter at some point. I tried to play it on the Xbox at some point through the Game Pass, but it's just such a large game that jumping in kind of alone and with so many other games that I want to play, that's kind of a tough one to really crack, but I do like the idea. Similarly with Hades, I mean, this is a game that people have been talking about all through its early access. You've probably heard me mention it on this show a couple of times. People love it, absolutely love it. And I never played it, even though I'm a huge roguelike person, and, you know, I think mostly it has to do with, you know, the fact that it was in early access. I have so many games that I own that are fully released and launched and bug fixed and all that stuff. I don't really want to go through that process. So now that the game is out, I don't really have any excuse, I guess. I gotta play it. Anyway, besides that, you know, just keeping it real, living the busy life. I've been trying to play some more Nier Automata. I might try and talk about that this weekend, but I'm not done with the game just yet. Like, I haven't even gotten to the first ending, and I feel like if I'm gonna talk about it, I should know enough about the way that they end this game, just because it's so unique. So hopefully I can manage to get my way through it. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe I'll put out a mailbag through the Discord. I'll have to think about what I want to talk about. Anyway, folks, that'll do it. Thank you so much for joining me here. Every single day, I am just fascinated at how many people decide to actually listen to my voice, so I greatly appreciate it. And until tomorrow, or until Monday with the news, farewell.